Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to episode 392 of the Drunk Christian Podcast. I'm your host, as always. I'm Tyler. Join me with the man, the myth, the legend himself, Sir Colonel Gables. What's up, buddy?
Yo, I'm doing all right. Doing all right. Just a little bit tired, but at the same time, it's podcast time.
Yes. Yeah. This is, for people who don't remember, we're doing a special back-to-back episodes this weekend to give us a little break here as we go to our Extra Life journey. So it's like 12:40 here, my time right now on Sunday night. But so we had some fun little things we can talk about here. With some topics that we threw in to discuss. We're gonna run through them and see where we're at. See maybe we get through, and then kind of go from there. But I thought we start off. I'm planning on putting this out sometime on Friday. So give us what's your overall plans for Extra Life?
All right, so the overall plans for Extra Life, besides playing Resident Evil 6 with you, I want it to be like a sort of day where I try to catch up on, say, some little games. I know from our last recording I said I wanted to try to invest a little bit inside of Overwatch, which I'm not too sure when during the day I will try that. I wanted to try to at least play a little bit more of like the tank class in regards to playing as either Reinhardt or like another specific character or something, because I did enjoy the last time that I played Overwatch fairly recently. My time as a tank, I did receive some bit of accolades from other players online, so I want to at least aim for an hour of playing Overwatch at most. I know what was successful for me last year was when I went into specific chunks of certain games and stuff, because I was able to tackle a couple of different games that I wanted to. I went through the entirety, I think, of Castlevania Symphony of the Night last year during Extra Life, which took me a good solid, I think, 5 to 8 hours, and I did that throughout that whole day. Still fun. It's still fun to play through this day for me. But other games I'm not really too sure about. But depending upon when we go through and start Resident Evil 6 and when we actually go through and finish it up, I have no clue at this moment in time. My intent was to stream some bit of PS4 games throughout my Elgato, and on top of that, maybe some Switch games. But there's like two games I have that are concrete: Resident Evil 6 and Overwatch.
Nice. It's a tip I was giving out last week, where or 2 weeks ago now at this point, where I was talking about, like, if there's a game you think you might be interested in, just download it, have it ready to go. Like I have a decent amount, and have different games too. Don't just try to focus on, don't have too many of one game, because you will, don't have a bunch of open world games or shooter games downloaded, because you will burn out on them. You'll be like, I need something different to play.
Oh, no doubt.
So like right now, obviously Resident Evil 6, I'm banking on that taking up at least a minimum of a third of our day. I've talked about many times before that, like, going in this Extra Life, I don't really have, anything new to play that's like I'm wanting to play. I think you're in a good spot right now when just starting Ghost of Tsushima. That's like, to me, that's always been like those like open world games have always been perfect Extra Life games.
Right.
Especially if you just want to knock out some side content. Whereas like, you don't have to worry about the story. You don't you want to grind and get some level experience or resources, blah, blah. Those games perfect for Extra Life. Especially if you're going to be like, in a party chat, you don't have to focus on anything. Resident Evil 6 is a big one. I've downloaded the Call of Duty Modern Warfare 1 and 2 remasters that came out previously. Titanfall 2 is also downloaded, because I beat it on Xbox One when it first came out, and then I got it a few years ago for Christmas. My sister bought it for me the year it came out, and because I wanted to, I love this. I rented it and I loved it so much I wanted to actually own it. So she bought me a copy of it, and I played it and never finished it. So on PS4. So I do want to jump back and maybe play it again. Also, re-download Injustice 2. I wanted to replay that because I'm assuming Injustice 3 is going to be coming out hopefully sometime next year. If Rocksteady stays on their, not Rocksteady, NetherRealm stays on their pace of releasing a game every other year. What else did I have? I'm anticipating we're going to have every year we have a bunch of us get into like Rocket League, and play that. So I'm hoping we get some Rocket League going on. Overwatch I do have downloaded. There's a bunch of like Predator Hunting Ground, Friday 13th. Hoping for a lot of those games to have we can jump into, because that's always a key. Is like, especially you get late in the day, you get that last third or so of the day, even second half, where like just playing games with friends is a boost that you're gonna need, and it's a good time.
Dude, I'll tell you what, man. It's like, I would be perfectly stoked if like we got a good party or something trying to play Friday the 13th, and we tried to have some of our friends or something try to kill like Jason.
Yeah, I would be totally. Yeah, I would love that.
I would like to get that one trophy or something like that, where you have to try to kill Jason by just holding the mask, do this, do that. It was just so oddly specific that I feel like if we had like a group of 8 to 16 of us and stuff, we could just bullshit around and try doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I remember we worked together to do that. We still couldn't do it. So it's very difficult to do. Like even like the guy playing Jason was like, all right, here, kill me, and we couldn't do it.
That's true.
Yeah. So it'd be a it's like I said, I have a good chunk of games I have downloaded ready to go for when the day comes, because I talked about it a couple weeks ago, where it's just like, you think you're ready, you have enough games there to play, but it's like when you're 14, 15 hours into to your day, and it's just like none of these games are clicking for me. It's like you don't want to wait, because I want to play this game, but it's a 60 gigabyte download. That's gonna take the rest of the night to play, or to download, to even get a chance to play it. So it's like, just have everything ready to go on the ready. Better be safe than sorry, for those, on those nights. So like I said, especially in the middle of the night, when you got those last 4 or 5 hours left, just anything that'll click for you. Especially for me, obviously I'm gonna play Madden. I always like to start off my extra life playing a game of Madden, and then I usually like to end it, or late in the night I play a game of Madden. Kind of keeps me focused a little bit, and it's just fun to see how like well I do with after 20 something hours of playing games straight and no sleep. My motor skills, see how they work. We got playing out too. Like we talked about when we decided to do the Resident Evil 6 playthrough. It's like, we can't start with Resident Evil 6. We can't end with Resident Evil 6. We got to find a nice balance where I feel like we need to start it early enough in the run, where it's like we're both a few hours in. We played some other games, got us like, all right, we're primed, ready to go. We're pumped. Because my thing is, I don't want to be playing that game. I don't want to be 10 hours in. All right, we'll start Resident Evil 6. Because remember, we did that like 4 years ago. We're going to play Resident Evil 6. I think it was 2017.
Yes, it was.
And we were like, but we like waited so long. And it's like, you mentioned it to me, but I could tell in your voice, like, I don't want to play this, but it's like we said we're going to do it. And you asked me, I'm like, dude, I don't want to play that either. But it's just like, it's like we get that monkey off our back. It's going to be, I think playing it together will be a good time. But we also, like I said, that's a game we need to start in the first 4 or 5 hours of our run. Is like, and knock it out. And then when we get into like the really, really hard part of Extra Life, that last 6 hour stretch, then we can play the games that we actually kind of want to play, instead of forcing ourselves to play a game. But who knows? Maybe that's our part. We'll enjoy it to some extent. But that'll be fun, and we're gonna both be streaming it. I'll be we'll have it. I'll set it up so we're streaming it on the Drunk Nerds podcast Twitch feed, twitch.tv/Drunk Nerds podcast. But also,
all right.
Gables will be streaming it on twitch.tv/Colonel and I'll be streaming it on twitch.tv/Gingerboy507. So if you want to watch us play through the entirety of that, we'll be doing that on there. So that should be fun. And if I can, I'll set up, and then I'll post it on our YouTube channel later, sometime that week whenever I'm fully functional again. That's kind of our plans for Extra Life. Should be fun, and things always deviate. We always have an idea. And like I say, even though you have 20 games downloaded, you're still going to deviate a little bit off of that.
Yes, you will.
But another thing I wanted to touch upon is, we talked about it previously already, but we never really talked about on the podcast. But like the game of the generation, and when we're going to do that. Like when we did the last one, we did it during Thanksgiving, so we got like a little bit of a break going into the Thanksgiving week. We're not going to be doing it this time. I think we'll do a little differently, because that was kind of rough too, because like we're still currently playing like that current generation of games. So it's like kind of made it, a list a little rougher to do. Because like I was, I just finished a few pretty big, really great games. Right, for that, it makes it like a little harder because you have that recency bias and all that. And also we have consoles coming out with a bunch of big games coming out. It's like we don't want to be talking about the last generation games. We have all these big new generation games. So I think the plan is tentatively we're going to do our game of the generation list and sometime in January. And I think what do we agree on? 25 top 25.
I think we agreed on the top 25, and then it had like maybe 5 as honorable mentions.
Yeah.
I think that was what it was.
Yeah, I think we're gonna do. Yeah, it was either top 25 or top 20 with 5 honorable mentions. It's one of those two. We'll figure out a concrete plan for that. But
I think you're right. Actually, I think it was a top 20 with 5 or something.
With 5 honorable mentions. Yeah, that sounds better. That sounds cleaner. So that's kind of the plan right now. We're obviously gonna do our Game of the Year podcast. We always do it the last week of every year. So that week in between Christmas and New Year's, we'll sit down and we'll do our marathon of our top 10 list for 2020. And then we'll come back in January. And I don't know how we're going to work it out. I don't know if it's going to be, there'll be the full-on episodes for those weeks, or maybe we'll continue to do our weekly show. And that will be like a side show. Like it'll come out in the middle of the week. I don't know how it's going to work out. I think we're just going to kind of wait and see how January looks. If it's kind of a slow month of news, then we'll just make it instead of just putting together a random podcast, we'll just make it our actual like shows of the week. But
that sounds like a plan.
Yeah, but yeah, like I said, the plan is in January, and then we have the rules right now. When we did the last Game of the Generation list, we didn't include Wii U games. We included Wii games, and
yes.
and Wii and DS was allowed. 3DS and Switch, 3DS and Wii U was not allowed. This time around, Wii U and 3DS games will be allowed, but Switch games will not. And it can't be any Switch game any Wii U game that came out after March 2nd. So that means Breath of the Wild cannot be on this list,
right?
Which was one of the caveats. But any 3DS game is allowed, and obviously any. I think I don't know how we're gonna do it. I think maybe we should just do like November 11th is the cutoff for November 11th is the cutoff because the Xbox Series X, like there's no actual exclusive game that's coming out on that day that's not already on the other consoles or will be in the other consoles. So I think that's probably the best. Like games like Miles Morales, Demon's Souls will not be eligible for this list, but everything else. Because I don't know that because it was kind of a weird cop, but I'm not.
That's tough because like Cyberpunk wouldn't even count for that as well because that's also like a cross generation thing.
Yeah, but I think it's gonna work out fine because they even talked about like that game basically became, like we were just talking about in the last show, that the game became a next gen game somewhere in development. So I think it'll work out for the better. And I'm not really worried about, like, we had a weird cutoff last time around, but I'm not worried about any console launch games from PS4 and Xbox One being on our top 25 list. I don't, at least for myself, I don't foresee myself putting what's the Killzone Shadowfall. I don't think it's gonna crack my top 25 list for Game of the Generation. I don't know about you, Gables. I don't want to speak for you, but I don't see it. But speaking of our Game of the Year list, I thought it'd be fun to kind of talk about if there's any games that came out this year in the year 2020. We're about 6-7 weeks away from us doing our top 10 list for 2020. If there's any games that came out this year that we've yet to play that we want to play.
All right. So that have came out this year that I've yet want to play. There's a couple that I think
you want to play more of, or blah blah. You know what I mean?
I do want to play more of Ghost of Tsushima. That's something. I want to see if I can finish Last of Us Part 2. It all depends upon how I'm feeling in regards, because quite honestly, it's like the material, everything else that you tackle inside of that game, it gets extremely hard just to go back and try to play it. I'm being perfectly frank with you.
Yeah,
and fair. Because I'm so immersed right now in Ghost of Tsushima, I'm not even really thinking about Last of Us Part 2 at the moment. But I do want to at least finish it, hopefully, by the end of this year. But for games I haven't even started yet that have released this year, Final Fantasy VII Remake is definitely the one I need to play from now on until like around the end of the year. I want to try to play that. Also, I have Resident Evil 3. I do want to try to get that one played because that one is going to be a lot shorter than the other games for damn sure. I know that. Looking over at my thing right at the moment, Doom Eternal. I
Mm.
do need to finish up Doom Eternal. Let's see, Switch stuff. Switch stuff. Gosh, I'm trying to think of anything else in regards to the releases. I know that. Gosh, not even that Hyrule Warriors game and stuff in November would count, huh? Because that'd be the cutoff, November 11th.
Ooh. Well, that's for Game of the Generation.
Oh,
Which
Game of the
Switch won't be.
Generation, but this is
Yeah,
for
no,
this
like
year. Okay, my
yeah, but for
misunderstanding.
this year, you're fine. We could anything comes out this year, obviously, is eligible.
Well, I do want to try to buy the Hyrule Warriors, like the Calamity
Yeah.
stuff, when that releases this month. I do want to play that. So I really got like about 3 to 5 games max I can think of off the top of my head. Oh, there's another one though. The whole elements of Curse of the Moon 2 on the Switch. That was the one I was thinking of. That's the one I played half of, and I haven't returned back to finish the other half. But I want to finish that. It doesn't take too long to go through initial playthrough, but from what I have played through, it has been enjoyable. So I can count about 5 games currently. Yeah, that's about it though.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. The only thing I've done a decent job of like I've been better over the years about like real recognizing I'm not gonna like play these games or or like at a certain point I'm like I'm not getting back. There's been some cases like even Resident Evil 2, like that was a game I didn't think I'd go back and ever play, and I went back and played it, but I also had a dead zone. But for the most part, like if I feel like I'm not gonna play it, I don't play it. So my backlog actually is clear. The only thing I have right now that's out that I want to play is Little Hope. Um, that's more so because I love Until Dawn, and like I said, like on the last show, I didn't really care for Man of Medan, and the reviews right now for Little Hope are not great. But I at least want to give it a shot. But like I've talked about already, the rest of the year is pretty much jam packed. Miles Morales, Gears Tactics, Sackboy, Hyrule Warriors. I do want to check out Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War if it comes back in the campaigns. People are liking the campaign. I want to check that out. And then obviously Cyberpunk is the big ones that I want to play. So yeah, I mean I'm doing okay right now. I've done it's been a pretty good year for gaming, and I've been pretty lucky about having time to play those games. Next up, we were talking about the end of the generation Gables. I thought it'd be kind of fun to talk about some of like maybe your most disappointing games from this generation.
Hmm. Honestly, most disappointing games of this generation. Does it have to be the stuff that we've actually played, or could
Oh
it be
well,
like?
yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to. No.
Okay, I know there's a couple of disappointments in regards to this generation in general. I mean, the obvious one would have to be with games like Anthem. I mean,
Yeah.
that one had a huge, huge build up and stuff when that was initially unveiled. BioWare, their next main big project after doing all this stuff with the Mass Effect Andromeda not being so good. They had a lot riding on the stuff, and honestly, it failed almost on all levels. There's hardly any content to keep like players coming back to their game and stuff. It was mostly aimed as a live service sort of game, but at the same time, there was so many like issues at launch that they had to go through and issue a bunch of different types of patches. There is all sorts of documentation stuff, and it's crazy that there are some elements that are almost the exact same thing as how Marvel's Avengers has been this year, where that's also been a game that's been sort of disappointing from what I've understood from initial things, where I kind of feel like Marvel's Avengers, now that I look at it, the thing that's really suffering with this game is like the online portion of it, when you have to do things with other people, because there's hardly any people on the servers that you can get the hell to do with.
Yeah.
But another disappointment that I could think of off the top of my head, Fallout 76. That one had a lot of issues at launch. It definitely had a lot of issues in terms of the storage lockers in regards to like NPCs not even being remotely available. And God, that game was such a swindle for stream, like just main fans of that series, because you paid Bethesda a certain amount, like say for like a subscription for this MMO, and then you hardly get shit upon launch, and they didn't even add NPC characters, where players had to literally add in NPC characters until like Bethesda had to go through and issue up some more like guidelines and stuff and what they wanted to do for downloadable content and this and that. There are some people that play that game hardcore. However, I still feel like that is a major disappointment, because this was touted as a like uh, like a whole new frontier for Bethesda and the Fallout franchise and stuff. But it's more or less been like one of a couple different cogs of like a wet fart that they had throughout the past couple of years. Let's see. Disappointing games, disappointing stuff. Well, I kind of feel like there's been one disappointment in terms of a game studio that happened most recently, and that's with Lab Zero Games, where their main founder and stuff did a lot of shady dealings and a lot of shady things and stuff, to the point where a lot of the workers that were under him either left the company, or basically what had happened was the workers inside the company wanted the main guy and stuff to leave and stuff. They wanted him to like be just to step down, because he was not doing like a lot of morally ethical things. And what ended up happening was that entire studio just literally shut down, because he didn't want to budge on anything. And so a lot of those workers he ended up letting go. I'm paraphrasing it right now. I know there are certain details I am missing, so don't jump down my throat if I do miss a couple of things. But I'm sad because one of their last games that they released is another game that I do want to eventually play, and that's Indivisible. I have the PS4 copy. I'm so glad I got that game when it was on clearance at my local Walmart. That is like a Valkyrie profile style game where a lot of the attacks are based upon certain buttons and this and that. But my main thing is Lab Zero Games. This is a company that they were not treated well when they were with Konami. And so they separated that to form their own company, which end up down the line have them being out of jobs and stuff with that company finally closing down. But they were responsible for games like Skullgirls and Indivisible and stuff. Ironically enough, Indivisible, that beta, I remember playing years ago on one of our Extra Life things. I think that was the first Extra Life that I had spent with both you and Jake. Oh, that one was a fun one.
Yeah, that was a good year.
But I'm drawing a blank with other types of disappointments in terms of other types of mainstream games. But I do feel like one big disappointment that I had while playing certain games this generation was the original Destiny. For everything that was touted from Activision, their 10-year plan with a game with Bungie and this and that, the original game, I feel like that there were certain parts of it that were good, but the consistency of the downloadable content, some of the DLCs were not as good as advertised. And honestly, I feel like that was a major disappointment. Destiny 2, on the other hand, it started off like on the wrong foot. There was some elements of microtransactions and certain like pay to win sort of elements inside of that game initially. I feel like since Bungie has distanced themselves from Activision and got the IP to Destiny in and of itself, I feel like they've done strides inside the right direction, where it feels like whenever I play this game now with friends, I'm getting so much, I'm getting rewarded for doing a lot of different stuff. Like, they've struck it right, I feel, in regards to redeeming itself from how Destiny 2 initially launched, and also from all the random shit that Destiny 1 had. I felt Destiny 1 was a disappointment, like I said before, because of the content that was not available at launch. People were upset about that, I remember, especially during the story mode, because the story mode, you, Jake, and I played through that thing together. All of us, even when that last mission was all done and over, we were like, wait, that was it? The main story mode was disappointing. The gameplay was the most fun aspect of that, of the original Destiny.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of anything else. No, not that I can think of now.
Okay.
What about you, Tyler?
I have a few here. So first and foremost, Watch Dogs. Um,
Okay.
I overall, I thought Watch Dogs was good. It's a good game. Um, but that was kind of we're getting that new era. That's when like Ubisoft really was starting to turn around. I thought it was just like seeing all these really great games coming out from like just like when they're previewing and showing them off, and I'm really excited for that game. Like I wasn't even like the graphics part. Like that was like, the biggest rip off of it. Rip what people had on was like how beautiful the game looked at E3, and then it's like no, it doesn't look anything nearly as good as that. But like I don't know, like I thought the ideas in play there they had like you could see it. Like it just wasn't fully fleshed out. But like what they showed, what you got, was just disappointing. Aiden Pierce obviously was just a terrible protagonist. That story was just not good at all. I thought the Definitely Turn on Watch Dogs 2 was like really really good. But that was one for me that really that was a big bummer. That was a game I was like, you would have asked me at the beginning of the year, like going into that year, I think it was 2014. Like in 2014 was a pretty bland year. Like that was one of
Yes, it was.
probably one of the worst years that we've had in gaming, at least since we've been doing this podcast. Definitely probably the worst. And it didn't even crack my top 10 list that year. Like that's how like I said, I
Wow.
enjoyed the game, but it's like I don't know, it was meh. Another one, pretty much honestly, like BioWare just in general. Um, Dragon Age Inquisition starting off 2014, then in 2017 we had Mass Effect Andromeda, and then we had Anthem. Like they were the darlings of last generation, where like everybody loved them, and it's just like you've seen everything they've done. And, like, I don't want to like be the EA basher, but you look at everything they've done since EA bought them, where it's like you look at Dragon, even going before this generation, Dragon Age 2 and Mass Effect 3 were just like Dragon. I love Dragon Age. I don't even like that kind of style, like that era of gaming. Like I don't care for like spells and magic and that dragons and all that shit. Like I don't like that. It doesn't really get me. There's always like I love Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones. Like there's always those things that like break that rule for you. For the most part, they don't. That style doesn't really jive with me. And I just thought Dragon Age Inquisition was just it's just the story wasn't great. The combat was good, but it's just I didn't like I thought the worlds were bland, and just the way everything was set up just that was not fun. And obviously Mass Effect Andromeda, I put 40 hours in that game just trying to force myself to like that game. I remember I talked about before about like I took a week off of work and I spent pretty much I didn't take the week off of work to play this game, but I took the week off of work and I spent majority of my vacation playing through that game, just trying to convince myself to like the game. And I remember like it was like like Thursday or Friday night, my vacation's practically over, and I'm just like I'm done with this game, and I was more upset. Like not only like this was a game like I loving Mass Effect 1 and 2 and enjoying Mass Effect 3, but it wasn't anywhere near the level of 1 and 2, and just how boring the characters were, how buggy the game was, how clunky it was, how boring the worlds they created were, and the missions and everything in it. It's just the game wasn't good. Borderline sucked, and on top of that, I wasted my vacation playing a game that I didn't enjoy, just trying to convince myself that I liked it. Mirror's Edge Catalyst is another one. Speaking of EA, love Mirror's Edge. It was just like so excited for the fact they're bringing it back for a sequel, and then it was just almost like they released this game as like a way to prove that this game didn't have a sequel. Where it's like we're getting like, hey, all you love this platforming, linear, like really awesome setup of like how like the flow through these levels. How about we make an open world where like things don't work that well and the story is not very good. The open world is half baked at best. It's just like I don't know. And they're like, oh, we're also gonna make you do combat. It's just like fuck. Like I remember being so proud of myself when I beat I got the achievement on my 360 for beating Mirror's Edge without ever using a gun. And it's like
Wow.
now like you're being forced in this game to use weapons, and it's just like,
Oh,
man,
brother.
fuck off. Speaking of AA, once again, Star Wars Battlefront and Battlefront 2. Just
That's
I
true.
don't need to say much more about those, but that was Two uh, very disappointing games. But I don't know. I mean, those are like the big ones that kind of stuck out. Mass Effect Drama, obviously. Another one actually I want to mention. I mentioned before. One of my favorite games of all time, but also one of the most disappointing games ever. Metal Gear Solid 5.
Oh, really?
Yeah. One of my game of the year 2015, still one of my favorite games of all time. Probably going to be in my list somewhere when we do our Game of Generation list. But it's just, like just the whole thing with Konami and Kojima, the fact that he wasn't able to finish the story. There's like Chapter 3 was just cut out. The game just basically ended, and they just had to wrap it up. And it's like there was a whole third of the game that was just cut out, like the last mission. You can see like you can watch it on YouTube, but it's just like storyboard stuff and some like a little bit of voice acting in it. But the mission itself was never completed. Just I don't know. And then the fact that it wasn't actually. It's like when talking to Justin about Breath of the Wild. Like he loves Breath of the Wild, one of his favorite games of all time. But it's like the same way. It's like he misses Zelda games. It's not a Zelda game. It's kind of the same idea where it's like it's an all-time great game, but it's not a typical Metal Gear game. But still love it. But it's it's soul crushing that my favorite franchise of all time never gonna get an actual real sequel ever. Maybe somebody else will pick it up, but it's like from Kojima's story, even though it's batshit crazy as he gets with them, it's like we're never gonna be able to pay off that story, which is a bummer. Even though I know we paid off with 4, which is the most important part, but the finally bringing the whole timeline together with Metal Gear Solid 5 to Metal Gear is disappointing. But yeah, moving on to our most disappointing games, Gables. What are some of your most underrated games from this generation?
Underrated.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good question. I'm trying to
Games,
think of
I have one big one in mind I want to mention. For
all
me.
right, go ahead.
This was this game came out with so much, like baggage behind it. It was like blasted in reviews. It was like the big topic of like how long games should be. It's the Order 1866 or 1886. Sorry, 1866.
1886.
Thank you. But I really, 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 really love this game. I mean, and that was the big thing around because I think it was like 5-6 hours long. But I had a blast with this game. I love the story. I don't know. I haven't played it since it came out. I think it's one of the PlayStation Classic games on PS5. Maybe I think a game I would actually be interested in checking out again eventually. But I just had a blast with it. It looked stunning. The story was great. I enjoyed the characters quite a bit. It's just a bummer that like a game around it, like just the game, unfortunately, just wasn't like. No one talked about the game anymore, how good of a game it was, or if it was good or not. It was just about how long the game was. It's just like the narrative about that game, like, and that was, an argument that went on for a long time. I remember we had that discussion on here multiple times when that game came out. I was like, how long should a game be? And it's just like, was the game like from a gameplay? Was it like, is this game a 10 out of 10 by any stretch of the imagination? Absolutely not. Is it a 9 out of 10? No. Is it an 8? Maybe. But it's, I don't know. I feel like the reviews came out bashing the game mostly for how short it was. It's like they set it up for a sequel. I loved like the twists and turns in it, and I think the gameplay was good. It wasn't great, but it was good for what this game, a narrative driven. It was kind of like the early signs of where like we saw, where PlayStation games were going. First party games were going towards the end of the generation, and going especially in this one, it's a third person action adventure game, and obviously like that's like their bread and butter right now. We've seen this generation with their PlayStation Studio games. So yeah, that it's crushing. Like that's a game that I would love to have a sequel to. If they had a sequel, they announced a sequel to it, I would be fucking ecstatic it would make me so happy to have a sequel for that game. Couple other ones I have are the Evil Within games 1 and 2. I've talked about recently about Extra Life, where like I didn't like 1 at first, and then a few hours in, it hooked me. Evil Within 2 is fantastic. They never really sold well. they had an audience around them. There's some buzz around them. But like I always talk about, like they were like, before Resident Evil turned it around with 2, the remake. It was like you look at where Resident Evil went in the previous generation, and then Dead Space kind of took that mantle last generation. Then you see, I always talk about Evil Within kind of took the mantle this generation after Dead Space 3 kind of came out, and it was something completely different entirely. It was pretty disappointing, but yeah, I just the stories are they're dumb and but they're perfect for like what you're wanting in a kind of a fun little horror game. I thought the ways things went with 2 was good. Like they were kind of made some like they're not really open world. Like they're open world-ish. There's little missions you can do in them, but like the worlds are very small and they're broken up into pieces. But the way the combat went with those games was just fantastic. I wish. I hope we get an Evil Within 3, and that's kind of like the one big thing coming out of it for with Xbox buying is like I could see a chance where maybe Evil Within 3 happens. It's like those games, like I said, they never sold great, so I could see why they wouldn't want to make a third one. But it's like they sold well enough, and there's enough buzz around it. I could see a third one being a big deal. A couple of ones. These are not like these are under the radar games, but they were definitely games I loved a lot. Was our 2 Call of Duty games. We had Advanced War and Infinite Warfare. I thought the people hated them because they totally jumped off of the franchise, and like the things we're used to. They want more of the serious shooter game, army shooter game. But like, I love them for that reason. I love Advanced Warfare because they went crazy with the futuristic shit, and then Infinite Warfare going even crazier with like now there's flying missions and like you're a pilot, and it's just like I love where those went, and I wish. It sucked that like they had to totally like basically go back to the basics, which I talked about. Like I enjoyed Modern Warfare at the time, but I would so much love Infinite Warfare or Advanced War 1 and 2, or 2 for either one of those. So yeah, those are some of my games. I like looking back at the generation. Either got a bad rap or games that just didn't get the spotlight it deserved. What about you, Gables?
There are definitely a few games that I can consider to be underrated. One of them I can think of off the top of my head because I'm staring at my Vita right at the moment. Gravity Rush. Gravity Rush is definitely a fantastic platformer. And I'll say this, that definitely has a good open world. There's a lot of fun things you can do. Honestly, the gravity element of it makes it a lot of fun to try to work and manipulate because you're collecting shards and stuff to upgrade certain abilities. You're helping people in this gigantic, like dystopian sort of flying city. You're trying to go through and defeat these dark monsters and stuff like that. These dark like enemy monsters, while trying to uncover little bits about your past and do this and do that. I really loved the feel of the game. I definitely felt like that it made good use of the gyro sensoring and also the touchscreen of the Vita itself. Another game that's also was on the Vita, I actually have the Platinum for, and that's Taco Master, believe it or not. This is a game that not a lot of people are going to know unless you want to go through on the Vita storefront and go through and search for it. But Taco Master, this was a fun game that totally took me by surprise. I kind of dismissed it when I heard people talking about it, but when I bought the game myself, which wasn't too much, honestly, I think it was like maybe $3 at most when I got it. It was basically a game where you was swiping the screen and stuff and trying to make certain taco orders and do this and do that. And I had completed that game before I even knew it. It was that fun. It was that addicting, honestly. And this is the type of game where I haven't played it since, but at the same point, it was simple in premise where you're swiping specific portions of like making your burritos or making your tacos and doing all sorts of various toppings, sauces, whatever. But it definitely had a fun appeal to it. Some digital games I could think of is like that Bloodstained Curse of the Moon. It pays heavy reference to the Castlevania games because of its creator Koji Igarashi was very instrumental in sort of the whole Castlevania franchise with his time into like Konami and stuff like that, with Symphony of the Night, Rondo, plus other games that were after that, especially for the DS. Now that I remember it. But yeah, Curse of the Moon was definitely a great game in terms of its art style, in terms of its Obviously the gameplay was very simple, and you can manipulate a lot of the different difficulties. If you played it through a couple different times at different difficulties, you could basically play it like you would a Castlevania game, to where there's knockback, where you have hard foes, where you can only take a couple hits before you die. It had a lot of good accessibility stuff. So I know that game was pretty underrated, and it still is underrated. But let's see, 3DS games stuff. Honestly, I really did like playing a bit of Mario, like Tennis on the 3DS. That one definitely was a bit of fun. You could create certain Mii characters in regards to that. But it was simple. It was to the thing. It was a lot better than, say, Mario Tennis Ultra Smash, I think it was, or Ultra whatever on the Wii U, which that barely had any type of content, which now that I think about it was a disappointing game in and of itself. That and another game for the Wii U for Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival. That was barely a game at all. But that's disappointing. This is the underrated stuff. So, oh boy. Just trying to think of any other types of games I could think of that were kind of underrated. Oh, there are actually two more games I could suggest. One I was playing a little bit of when I got it on sale, and that was Fist of the North Star Lost Paradise. I love Fist of the North Star. That franchise is it's very over the top, it's very violent, it's very fun to actually go through and enjoy the show in and of itself. And this is a game that doesn't take itself too seriously. It pays heavy reference and heavy gameplay style and exploration things to the Yakuza series. That's a series I haven't invested inside, but from the time I've spent with that game, you're doing various side missions, you're doing this and that. I feel like it is an underrated game because not a lot of people are going to invest inside of it unless they know the IP itself. But it's fun. You can execute enemies just all these random sort of specific attacks. It has a development tree, so you can go through and develop certain techniques, this and that. Another game, and I think this is going to be the last one because this is the one I can remember a bit, was Mad Max. Mad Max is actually a pretty good game in and of itself. I've played a little bit of it on the PS4. It is basically sort of like an open world style game, and you basically go through and have your dog with you. You can work on your vehicle and do this and do that, but it is a highly underrated game, which I would advise people, even if, say, you can't find it, say, at your retailers and stuff. This is a game you shouldn't miss. You want to go through and you want to get it online or whatever. It has some good combat stuff. The combat is more akin to almost a Batman sort of experience with it, with the flow of combat. It's been a while. It's been maybe about a year or two since I've last played it. But at the same time, from what I've experienced from the overworld and what I've experienced through the consistency of the mission structure and all the combat stuff, I really enjoyed. But those are the ones I could think of off the cuff. I'm sure there are many underrated games that I've played that I have not even begun to think about yet.
Very cool, man. It's a good list. And I think we'll end it with this one here. What's some of your favorite game or console launch memories?
All right. Good one here. There are a couple of console launches I can remember vividly. The one that I remember the most, and this is the most impactful one, was when I got the Wii. The Wii was the first gaming system I bought with my own money. So back around 2006, my dad and I went 4 o'clock in the morning. We waited in line at our local Walmart at the time. We were around the 6th or 7th in line. There was only so many consoles. We had to wait for these group of kids who pretty simply built up their fucking station that were sleeping and stuff like that in front of us, in front of the friggin' line. They had camped there overnight, quintessentially, and we had to wait for them to clean up their shit before the store could open. So they got their stuff cleaned up. I know I was the 7th in line or so. We got the system. I actually went through my first paycheck that I'd earned. I spent it on a Wii.
Nice.
I got the Wii, and I went later on that day and got Twilight Princess. I played that game almost all day in that regards from that console memory, and I also, yeah, I managed to invest in the virtual console when I got a couple digital games. So that was definitely a fun memory. The another console launch memory I could think of was, and this is gonna be for a while now. Oh gosh, I know there was like another console launch memory I have. I'm trying to think. It wasn't for the. It definitely wasn't for the PS4. It's the Switch. The Switch in and of itself. That was an ordeal in and of itself. I got the Switch finally about a couple of weeks later after launch, but that initial launch day thing was so frustrating because I was basically lied to by the store associate at the time, and I missed out on getting the initial Switch things because they were super rare to find at first.
Yeah.
Because everybody wanted that system in Breath of the Wild. I had I had checked so often that one of the store associates was like, "Okay, give me your number and stuff. If we get another shipment and stuff, we'll call you." And ironically, I was playing the Xbox One. I was playing through Gears 2, like Gears of War 2. I get the call. I tell my folks, like, okay, I need to go to the store. I need to get this damn console. Drove me over. The lady came by in the back, gave me the system. I paid for it, full price, honestly. And I got Breath of the Wild with it. Jesus Christ, man. That was the best launch freaking thing that I've ever experienced with a gaming console. Breath of the Wild, that was so much worth it. That was a game I spent almost an entire month playing. And it's definitely my most unforgettable console launch freaking thing that I've experienced. So those two are the best I could think of.
Nice. For me, it's like the Wii, like you. That was the first console I ever got at launch. I remember like I actually had like one reserved at the game store I was working at the time, and it's funny. Justin actually reserved. Justin was working there before, about a year before that, and they just announced it was the Revolution at that point. And he, as soon as like literally the minute they went up for reservation at the store, he put his up, and then he called me. He's like, "Dude, you want to put you on this list?" I'm like, "Yeah, fuck yeah, put me on that list." So he was number one, I was number two, and then waiting forever for this to finally come out. And then my boss prints off, my GM at the time, there prints off the list and sees that Justin doesn't work there anymore. He's number one, so he gets his. I'm number two. Only one employee is allowed to get one for the first shipment, and we got two in. And then she took my name off the list so she can take my copy, even though she wasn't on the list, and just and took her and basically stole the Wii from me. And I remember, I was pissed. But anyways, and this is like the night before, like the day before. So I'm thinking I have a Wii all the way up until that evening, and then I come find out I'm not getting a Wii now.
Wow.
So I ended up going to the Best Buy that's no longer over here on our side of town, but going there at like 1 a.m, and remember this is opening on a Sunday, and you can't go inside. There's no indoor or anything like that. It's a Saturday night, the week before Thanksgiving in Iowa, so it's fucking cold.
Wow.
And I was fourth in line to get one. I remember sitting there all night waiting forever and ever. Didn't sleep at all that night. I think I went home. I had to work late that night. Went home, slept for like 3 or 4 hours, and went up there and waited in line all night and got my Wii. And then I remember getting up there. They didn't have any games, though. There was no games available. But luckily, I went to there was a GameStop right around the corner. Like literally, it's like connected to the building. And I walked over, and they had extra copies. So I got a Sight Truck, a Red Steel, Twilight Princess. There's a couple other ones I got too with it. I can't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, I got those are like the big three. Obviously Wii Sports was bundled in, but going home playing, I think we all played. Me and my family played because it was like 16 or 17 when it came out. We all played Wii Sports, and then my buddies came over and we played Wii Sports. I was able to, the one big thing I was like, they didn't have any extra copies of the games, but they had extra Wiimotes, So I was able. I
Yep.
had a Wiimote, but I had the nunchuck. I just had the Wiimote, so I was able. We were able to play uh, a bunch of Wii Sports and shit that day, and I, playing Twilight Princess stuff like that. That was pretty cool. Um, as far as like big games, like big fun, favorite game memories is like I remember like when I worked at that game store, like like working the midnight sales of like the like NCAA and when Madden when that was a big deal back, it was like 07, 08 maybe I want to say,
Yeah.
and doing those midnight sales and like before that like I had to work the shift that day and we got our copies in like we always got our copies in like 3-4 days beforehand, and being able to take my copy home that the game comes out Tuesday night and or Monday night, and but we get our copies in on Friday, and my boss like you can go and take you can go and take your copy home. You just but I wasn't gonna play obviously because you get banned. Your Xbox is gonna get banned. So like sitting there
Yeah.
with my copy of like Instablade is like probably one like two or three of my favorite like franchises of all time. Like I love the NCAA football games more than Madden, and like sitting there for like all weekend with my copy of NCAA football and not being able to play it, or um, like Mass Effect when that game came out. Like we got copies of or that I remember that night with NCAA football. That one specifically, like we were only open from like midnight to like 12:30. It was stupid. I hated it. Like we never did them. We only did them like a few times. We did them like Halo 3, and then we did them for the Maddens and Call of Duty. And I only worked a couple of them, but I hated them because it was like you're only open for like literally like half an hour, but you gotta be there like 11, and then you like open up at midnight. And we were a small store, so you might have two or three people come in and get their copy, and that was it. And then like it was dumb, so we stopped doing them. But like when you're only open, you had to go in, and then a lot of times you had to open in the morning. And then I remember going home and staying up to like 4 or 5 in the morning because that was the first one to have the like the basically like the superstar mode in it. Like we were so used to it was called Road to Glory, and that was the
Right.
first one to actually have like where you just played as the character you picked. Like that was before MLB The Show did it. That's before NBA 2K did it. Madden did it. This was the first sports game to do that. And just staying up for 4 or 5 hours straight, just playing through my Road to Glory mode with my quarterback I created going to North Carolina, and just flying through that and having a blast with that. Another one I remember is like Mass Effect, like being still work at that game store, and we got the guide in like 2 weeks in advance, and I was so excited. I bought the guide for that game, and just sitting there, like I didn't read the actual like spoiler parts of the guide, but just reading like the beginning of it about the characters and about the world and like learning about everything, being so like sitting there at work because we were like when we were dead and just reading like me is like it brought me back to like as a kid, like when I used to like look forward to the Nintendo Power all month and getting it and just reading it from back to front 5-6 times that weekend or that week or whatever before I stopped reading it. It's that same idea where I just kept reading that same opening section of that guide over and over again. Just could not waiting for fucking Mass Effect to come out. So those were like another cool one I remember is like those one for me because I got Halo 3 a few days later, but like I remember like we got Halo 3 and like it came out like on a Tuesday, and I remember we got our copies in like a week. It was weird. I remember we got our copies in like a week or two before the game came out, and like a cool thing with the boss we had there was like as long as you give me the money now, it's like you can take your copy home with you and shit. Just like, but it's like don't obviously don't play. Like I remember like I only did that a handful of times. I did it like I always did it with Madden or NCAA. I remember doing that with like Call of Duty 4. I remember I did it with Mass Effect, but it's like I said, you have the copy. But the only nice was like you didn't have to wait to go to work or wait for the store to open. It's like almost like digital before digital, where it's like I don't have to wait to go to the store or wait for the store to open to go get it. It's like I can just I don't have to wait till 10 in the morning. I could just play it right now at like 1-2 o'clock in the morning. Wait and start playing it. And remember the cool thing like a couple of guys worked there, like a few of them like were huge Halo fans. Obviously Halo was the shit back in that time, and like talking to them about like they just unplugged their hard drive and they beat Halo 3 multiple times. Like, this is a week or two before Halo 3 actually came out, and just talking to them about the game. Yeah, so it's some cool, like a lot of cool memories there. Like, and then ones like, I remember Justin and I going up to get the 3DS XL on launch day and like going up there. I remember we both just randomly had the day off and driving up there to GameStop and grabbing it. That's pretty cool. Or what was it? I think it was like, I can't remember the game. Oh, Evil Within 2 coming out. I think it came out the same day like Friday the 13th come out. And it was just like they're randomly doing a midnight sale for it. Or it was like a 9 o'clock sale. And I was like, fuck it. I randomly also had that day off. Like, I remember we had like our plant was shut down the next day. I'm like, oh, fuck it. Might as well just go and get the game. And like getting that and had a 4-day weekend and just going and getting that, staying up till 2-3 in the morning playing that. So a lot of cool memories, of playing some really, some good launch games and some launch consoles. So fun memories there. So yeah, I think that Gables will wrap it up for us this week on this show. Thank you for listening to us. It's Extra Life is soon for us. If you're listening when the day comes out on Friday, we are antsy like crazy, waiting to get out of work so we can go home and go to sleep and wake up for Extra Life and start that up. And then we'll be back next week, coming back. What's crazy to think, Gables, is when we come back from this, we'll be in the new generation.
Yes, we will.
Yeah, I'll hopefully have a PS5. I'll be playing some Miles Morales and some Sackboy, Astro's Playroom, shit like that. So that's a crazy thing. It doesn't feel like it. It's like this whole like winter season feels like it's sneaking up on us. So it should be pretty awesome. But thank you guys so much for listening. I was Tyler.
And I have been Colonel Gables. So until next time, everyone, I hope you have yourself a good week. And I definitely hope and pray that you are wearing a mask and wiping your ass.
Yes. In that order, most important. Wear a mask first.
Yes, exactly.
But also wipe your ass. That's also very important.
Yes. But thank you very much for listening to another fun-filled episode of the Drunk Dash Nerds podcast.
Hey, Gables.
Yep.
Too sweet.
Too sweet, man.
Bye, guys.
See ya.